Today we're going to take a look at this cables and leaves pattern. It's a really great 3 pattern panel that uses 2 different cables framing this lace leaf stitch. It's really not that complicated, and I'm going to take you through that step by step. So here I've got a swatch already begun. You can see the pattern has already begun to form, and I'm ready to work a row 1. Now I've got a garter stitch border of 3 stitches, so every row I'm going to work is going to begin and end with K3 or knit 3. So I'm just going to knit my first 3 stitches, and then the pattern has a purl stitch, and then I'm going to work my first cable, and that's a C6F. So C6F stands for cable 6, that's the number of stitches we're going to work, and the F stands for front. So let me show you that in practice. I'm going to work these next 6 stitches. I'm going to slip the first 3 stitches onto my cable needle, and I'm going to leave that hanging in the front of the work as opposed to the back would be back there. Just leave it hanging in the front. Ignore those 3 stitches for a minute, and we're going to knit the last 3 stitches of the cable, which are the first 3 stitches on my left hand needle. And then I'm going to work the stitches from right off the cable needle. So I'm just going to bring that into position, ignore my left needle. It's a little hard to finagle 3 needles at once, but it's just for 6 stitches. And that's all there is to a C6F. So I've worked 6 stitches, and really all the cable is knitting stitches in a different order. And what this has done is bring my first 3 stitches over those last 3 stitches. And holding your stitches on your cable needle to the front of the work means you're going to get a left leaning cable. So let's move on in our pattern with a purl one and a knit one, and now we're into our leafy panel. So that begins with a yarn over, and all that is, it's literally a yarn over your needle. So that's going to create a stitch. I'm just going to work the next stitch, which is a knit one, and now I've got an extra stitch created by that yarn that I just laid over the needle. So my pattern was a yarn over knit one. Now I'm going to knit 2 together. So a knit 2 together is just as it sounds. I'm going to insert my right hand needle from left to right through the next 2 stitches and knit them together. And that is a right leaning decrease. If you look very closely, the stitches that I have worked together leaning ever so slightly to the right. After my knit 2 together, I have a knit 1 and then an SSK, which is another decrease stitch. And SSK stands for slip, slip, knit. It's a left leaning decrease. So we work that, it's a little bit different by slipping the next 2 stitches one at a time, knitwise. So that means I'm inserting my needle, my right hand needle, from left to right, as if I was going to knit this stitch, but just slip it off the left hand needle. So I do that twice, and then knit 2 together, knit those 2 stitches together through the back loop. And I like to do that by taking my left hand needle, just inserting it back into those 2 stitches, and I don't really need to slip them back onto my left hand needle because I'm already in position to knit those 2 stitches together through the back loop. If I keep that left hand needle at the front and my right hand needle at the back, then I've already got my right hand needle through the back loops, and I can just wrap my yarn around and knit the 2 stitches together. And that might be a little hard to see, but that is a left leaning decrease. And that's what makes the difference as we're going along. These left leaning decreases and right leaning decreases form the edges of our leaves. So after the SSK, I have a knit 1, yarn over, and I repeat that twice. So I'm going to knit the next stitch, working yarn over as before. I'm just going to bring the yarn over to the front, knit one, yarn over, knit one. Now I've got another K2 tog, or knit two together. So that's my right leaning decrease. I'm going to insert my needle, my right hand needle, from left to right through the next 2 stitches at once. Wrap my yarn around and slip those 2 stitches off the needle. I'm going to knit one and SSK again. That's my left leaning decrease. So I'm slipping the next 2 stitches one at a time, knitwise. So from left to right, inserting my right hand needle. Then I'm taking my left hand needle, putting that through those 2 stitches, keeping the left hand needle at the front and the right hand needle at the back. Gets me in position to knit those 2 stitches through the back loop. There's my SSK. Now I have a knit one, yarn over, which is just putting my working yarn to the front of the work, knit one, purl one, and then I've got my next cable. As this cable is sort of a reflection, it's the opposite of the first cable we worked, which was a C6F. This is a C6B. So it works very much the same. I'm going to slip the first 3 stitches onto my cable needle. The only difference is instead of holding that cable needle to the front of the work, I'm going to hold it to the back. So I'm going to ignore those stitches on reserve, knit the next 3 stitches off my cable needle, or sorry, off the left hand needle, and then grab my stitches from the cable needle and knit them right off the cable needle. So again, it's a little tricky to maneuver the 3 needles, but you only need them for those 6 stitches. And that's my C6B. And if you can see here, I've twisted the stitches now to the right. This cable leans to the right, where this one leads, the C6F leans to the front, or left. Now I'm going to work a purl stitch and knit 3, which is my garter stitch border. And that's row 1. Okay, so now I'm in the middle of the 7th row of my cables and leaves pattern. And the rest of the rows just use the same stitches that we learned in row 1. There's increases and decreases and the cable stitches. Now on row 7, we have something a little different. We're decreasing 2 stitches at once, and there's 2 different maneuvers we're working here. The first one is a slip 1, K2 tog, PSSO. So that's slip 1 stitch, knit 2 stitches together, and then pass that slip stitch over. So that works the next 3 stitches. I'm going to slip this first stitch off the left hand needle without working it. Then I'm going to knit 2 stitches together, just like we talked about in the K2 tog decrease. And then I'm going to take the stitch that I slipped, just insert my left hand needle on there, through there, and just pull that loop over the K2 tog. And then I've decreased 2 stitches. I've turned 3 stitches into 1. And that's a left leaning 2 stitch decrease. Then the next stitch that I'm working is a K3 tog, or knit 3 stitches together. And that's exactly like the K2 tog, or knit 2 stitches together, but I'm working the next 3 stitches all together. So it can be a little tricky to get your needle in there. But from left to right, insert your right hand needle, wrap your yarn around, pull your yarn through, and I've decreased 2 stitches. And you can kind of see the difference there. The knit 1, or slip 1, knit 2 together, pass slip stitch over is the left leaning one right here. And this is a right leaning decrease, or K3 tog. And that concludes all the different stitches that you need to create this great cable and leaves pattern. And once you've worked the repeat a few times, this great cable and leaf pattern will form, and that's all you need to go.